That's good. Okay. Let's see how yours looks. Where do you go to regain yourself and recover and come back to balance?
I find that a lot of time if I want to recover or just be any sort of alone time like that, it's either during the school year it's working on art, because that's sort of a thing where I can just focus on that or myself and not have to worry about other things, and then a lot of binge watching on TV and movies.
Right.
That's like my kind of alone time.
Yeah, so when we were initially talking, we talked about how that's sort of the thing you go to gain inspiration, but not necessarily what actually drives the actual art itself.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that for a bit. So
yeah, sure.
what kind of shows do you watch, and what kind of content do you get into when you're talking, like when you're making art or thinking about making art?
As for specific types, I don't think there's really a firm sort of type that I look for. I generally kind of go with anything I just find interesting, but I mean, that can range anywhere from like fantasy or sci-fi to just sort of like contemporary types of shows or anything like that. When I watch shows now, anything I watch on my laptop, if I find a scene that, especially if it's like a zoomed back scene that has the characters in full sort of thing and the environment, if I find that interesting, I'll like start screenshotting stuff like that and then just kind of store it just in case if I want to use it as a reference for a painting later or something like that. But I mean,
right. So it's almost like you're taking a mental note.
Yeah.
But you're using technology to help you.
Exactly.
With recall, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you find then that the images that you're drawn to have a certain aesthetic to them, or?
Maybe. I mean, it's kind of hard to say. I think it's just sort of just how the space and then the figures or something are just how they're sort of relating to each other at that moment, or if there's a complete thing to look at, then I can be like, okay,
yeah,
this might help.
Okay. So again, going back to like that initial thought, which was you're not necessarily making conceptual art, you're making art that has a visceral quality, or it has a something that's technically interesting about it. So it could be shapes, could be colors, could be texture. I know it's hard to get texture from television, but your mind can recognize.
You can find these forms, yeah.
So is that do you think that's a better way to look at it?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay.
I think it's especially just like spaces in general. I think that's the big one that I look for a lot.
So, like big spaces or a relation?
Just a relationship of different forms in the space and just how it kind of all fits together. And then if I can take that and mix that with other different forms and spaces from other shows or something, that's just kind of an example of how I might start to fit something together. And then if I change textures or colors and see how those relate, then bring all these sort of different elements together.
And did you say, I remember this when we were talking initially, but did you say that you pick certain eras? Like, or you're kind of drawn to certain eras?
At times, yeah, a little bit more like retro style. I always kind of find it has a slightly more interesting look to it sometimes, just because the way the colors are sort of a little bit dated looking. They have a bit more interest to me in that sort of aspect.
It's like chroma key, right?
A little bit, yeah.